watching Tim Tebow play, and I noticed like on the quarterback wristbands they had colored flashcards or colored like play sheets. So I was like, I want one of those. So I went to the store and got colored flashcards and wrote plays on those just so I could be like them. And then I remember like watching Reggie Wayne play for the Colts. He had some green gloves, and I was like, I want those. So I took a green like pen and colored some of my gloves to make it look like that. And I remember like watching LaDainian Tomlinson. He had a tinted visor, so I actually took a marker and colored my visor with black marker. I couldn't see out of it, but I wanted to be like that. And I actually thought about, well, I actually did get actual tint for like a car window and actually try to put it on there. So I mean, that was kind of funny. But my biggest influences with football growing up was Peyton Manning, since he's my favorite player.
So, did you play multiple positions in football, like offense and defense, or just you stick to one side of the ball?
Growing up, well, in Little League, I played offense and defense. So I was a little heavier back then and shorter. So I played like offensive line, fullback, and then on defense, like defensive line, linebacker. And then once I got older in like middle school, it was just mainly defense. A little bit of defense and offense, but mainly defensive back, and that's what I played throughout high school. So I should have played receiver too, because like I love the receiver position, but I was just playing defense.
Who did you try to like mold your game around towards as a defensive back in the NFL?
It's a few. Darrelle Revis, since he's my favorite cornerback all time. He's one of them. Tyrann Mathieu, since he's like one of the smaller guys, but he's really good. And so him, Tyrann Mathieu. I really like Jalen Ramsey. I don't really try to emulate my game after him, but I'm a fan of his. And just people like that. But mainly Darrelle Revis because he's on the shorter side, but he's really technically sound. So what I would do, I'm a student of the game, whether it be football, basketball, whatever. So what I would do is I would sit and watch film on Revis and other cornerbacks like hours, just hours and hours and hours, whether it be practice film and just game film and all that. I'd just sit there on the Xbox and just watch plays, rewind it, and be like, okay, how did he do this? How's he doing this? Play it again and just over and over and over. And Vernon Hargreaves the third as well. I mainly watched him in college, so I try to emulate my game after his, or I try to emulate my game after his as well.
No, since you're being Florida Gators, what do you think of the recent draft pick, C.J. Henderson?
I like CJ. CJ, he's fast. He's fast. That's the first things you think about with CJ is speed. So I think CJ is really good. I think his technique is going to get even better, especially with him being so athletic. But I think with his speed, I think he'll be just fine in the NFL. Once his technique gets better, which is it's already good, of course, he'll be locked down.
So so throughout your football career, and did you play college football? And also, was your goal to be in the NFL? Was one of your goals to be in the NFL too?
With college football, like I got to the college that had offered me when I was in high school. It was a small school. I went to that school, but I mean, things didn't really work out before school started. So I essentially sort of walked away from the game in a way. So I just kind of wanted to step back and just do some other things I was interested in as well. But I mean, NFL being a goal, I mean, I feel like for all football players, it's a goal. But for me, it wasn't like the only goal. I didn't want that to be just it. So I wanted to have goals and like other interests I have too. Even with sports, it could be like sports writing or being a sports analyst or coaching and stuff like that. So I wouldn't say the NFL was the only goal, but I mean, I think that'd be cool.
So before we go any further with your coaching career and the other stuff, I'm going to give you the floor here. So whoever doesn't know about your story, when I put this interview out, you can just I'm going to give you the floor here, so you can explain your story here if you want.
All right.
So so when did you so if you don't mind, can you explain your story and how you overcame it?
So I started writing in April of 2018. So with me, I've always enjoyed writing, just writing in general. So whether it be like English class and just stuff like that. So in 2016, I was a senior in high school, so I was 17 years old. So I'm sitting here, I'm thinking like, okay, so I wanted to write just like a story about mental health, sports, and stuff like that. So I'm like, okay, how am I gonna go about this? So I talked to this like people who they do like they cover recruiting and like sports writing and stuff like that, and they have stories on all that kind of stuff. So I was talking to them. They're called the Subway alum on social media, or if you can look them up, that would be that.
Mhm.
So I was talking to them and I was like, hey, I have an idea. And they're like, okay, what is it? So I was like, okay, so just telling them my story about mental health, dealing with depression, anxiety, and stuff like that. So I was like, we could do a story about this and it could inspire a lot of people. It could help a lot of people. And they were like, you know what? Okay, cool. So interviewed for that story. And so yeah, it came out in September of 2016. So the title of the story is Byron Jamar deals with depression as a high school football player.
Mm.
So I remember they had posted that, and so I posted it too. And so people were like really surprised. They were like, "Wow, we had no idea, you were going through this, this, and this." And because people don't really like see that. Like, say if they see you, being all happy and having a good time and all that kind of stuff, then everybody just could automatically assume that, oh, he's fine. They don't doesn't deal with anything off the field or just whatever. So or just in their personal lives. So like growing up, I moved a lot, so that was kind of difficult. And then just growing up throughout middle school and all that kind of stuff, just going through depression and then anxiety, just trying to really figure out myself. Just like especially in middle school at that age, you're kind of just figuring stuff out and really just getting ready for high school and beyond. So that was kind of difficult and kind of anxiety filled. But I mean, I've just kind of been through a lot. Just moving, uh, parents being divorced, and just like stuff like that. So I mean, so yeah, that was kind of hard to deal with growing up. But so that was that. And then throughout high school, playing sports, having to deal with like mental health stuff as well. That's been hard. It was hard at times, but it's like some days I'd be at practice and I wouldn't want to talk to anyone. So I mean, sometimes with like depression and stuff like that, it could be the smallest things could just set you off. Not really set you off in anger, but it could just take your mood from being in a good mood to just being in a bad mood. And it'd be the smallest things. So say if I didn't have a good day at school or somebody said something to me that I didn't like or I was just annoyed or something like that, then I would just shut down and I just wouldn't want to talk to anyone. So I'd be at practice, just going through practice, but sometimes I wouldn't really mentally be there. I would be there, but I wouldn't mentally be there. And so just stuff like that. Like say I remember one story, like everybody's getting water and stuff like that. So during a break and everybody's like sitting over there getting their water and all that. And I'm just kind of over here by myself, just sitting down because I don't want to be like bothered or anything or talk to anyone because of just stuff like that. So a lot of times, like in high school, off the field, I spend a lot of time alone, just like at the house. Now, other times, people, we would hang out and stuff like that, but a good amount of times I'd be alone. And sometimes, just like with mental health and stuff like that, you could feel alone in a room full of people, which I have plenty of times. So like I could be having a good time and all that, just hanging out with friends, and I could just shut down. And then sometimes I would just shut down just for no reason. I wouldn't have a legitimate reason to just. I would just be kind of like mentally burnt out. You know what I mean? So, but anyway, so in April of 2018, I wanted to sort of write a story about that, but I wanted to write it myself and go a little more in depth. So, it's my bounce back story that I wrote. And I've written other stories as well, but that was kind of the first one I wrote on my own. Of course, I had help writing it, but So, um, what inspired me to write it was Tyrann Mathieu. So he did a piece with Players Tribune about being drafted by the Arizona Cardinals and his time with the Arizona Cardinals and then going to Houston. So I was reading it and I was like, you know what, that's pretty cool. So I was like, I want to write something like that as well. So of course, Players Tribune is mainly like for like pro athletes and famous people pretty much. And I'm like, I'm not either of those. So I was just like, I'll write it on my own. So wrote that and then just talking about my story, just growing up, moving a lot and stuff like that. And moving a good bit, parents being divorced, and just dealing with sports and all that kind of stuff. So if people want to see that, they can go on my Twitter or my Medium page and read it. as well. But just dealing with that and being robbed at gunpoint at one point in time, and then dealing with PTSD from that. So that's been difficult to do, and just going through sports and all that, and just having to deal with all the mental stuff I'm going through. So usually with sports, if you're off the field or off the court or whatever, stuff is taken care of. It makes your sports stuff easy to take care of. So like if grades are good, everything's good at home and all the other stuff, it makes it easier to just be more focused on your sport. But that's kind of hard at the same time with somebody who's mental health, he has mental health concerns, you know. And so it's like people will use their sport or their hobbies and stuff like that as an escape from, you know, the stuff they're dealing with mentally. But sometimes the same thing they're escaping from could be something that triggers their mental health concerns as well. And for me, football was that at some points in time. Now I love football, but it was also a trigger for my like depression and stuff like that at times too. But in high school at least. So yeah, but if people want to read like just stories, I've written stories about mental health, about my mental health stories in sports, and people like DeMar DeRozan. I wrote a story about mental health athletes that included him, Serena Williams, and other people as well, Michael Phelps, etc. And then I've written a story about DeMar mainly. So yeah, DeMar DeRozan, he's like one of my biggest inspirations. I'm a huge basketball fan. Now, I wasn't always a basketball fan of his, a fan of his on the court until he spoke out about his mental health. I already kind of knew who he was, just him being one of the best players in the league. So when I found out that he deals with like depression and stuff like that too, I was like, wow. So I started paying more attention to him. So that's kind of how I gravitated towards him. So I'm a really big fan of his. So yeah.
Yeah. So have you reached out? Actually, has DeMar DeRozan reached out to you? Have you seen that? Has he seen the story, or have you reached out to him to share your story to him too? Or
I've tried, like when I posted it and I tagged him, and I try to get a lot of Spurs fans to sort of tag him too. It has a good amount of retweets and likes, but I have no clue if he's seen it because I mean, on Twitter he has a whole bunch of followers, so like I don't know. So then I try to DM him on Instagram, but sometimes he's not really on social media like that. So I'm just working hard trying to do that. I'm talking to Spurs writers and just NBA writers like, hey, could y'all help me get this to him? But I don't know if he's seen it. I mean, if he has, cool, but I don't know. I mean, I've tried to reach out to him, but I mean, I guess I can keep trying though.
yeah, so I'm gonna tag him into this interview when I post it. So he'll see. Hopefully, he sees this, and I'm gonna help you spread the word about your story with this interview. So I'm hoping this interview can help you spread the word, and more people pay attention to your longs. I mean, it's just a great thing you're doing, and it's such an inspiration putting your story out there. And it's tough. I mean, so I'm just like I recently interviewed Kobe Boyce from Texas.
Mm-hmm.
So I had him on my show. I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago on Instagram Live, and it was an honor for him to come on because he's dealing with the same exact thing what you're dealing with. He explained his story, and have you connected with him yet? Or
I have.
okay,
I have. He had posted something about his mental health, and I had saw it, or yeah, I saw it, and I DM'd him and I was like, hey, just talking. I'm like, hey, I understand, you know, what you're going through and stuff like that. So I hit him up and I was just like, I want you to know, you know, you're not alone and just stuff like that. So we actually connected and we talked a little bit about all that. So he's a cool dude, definitely.
yeah. So so obviously with all this going on, what advice would you give these young kids? Actually, before we get to your coaching career in 2019, I want to talk about what advice would you give these young kids, especially these young kids who are going through the same thing like what you did at an early age, which I hate seeing. And but what advice would you give them?
The advice I would give them would be to, even though they may feel like they're alone, that they're not, because trust me, like, say if one person is dealing with something, I guarantee you it's millions of people dealing with that same thing, but they might not talk about it. So that's kind of the case a lot of times. But I would just tell them like they're not alone and don't be afraid to really speak up about their mental health and get help. Talk to, you know, some of your coaches if you can, or your parents, or your friends, or therapists, you know, and just stuff like that. So I would just tell them to, it's okay to not be okay, but it's also okay to get help and to deal with the things that they're dealing with. Because I mean, we're all human at the end of the day. So yeah.
Hmm. So now going to the coaching coaching career in 2019, what was the experience? What was that experience like? Getting to teach these kids playing how to play football and how to get better with their craft, and what advice did you give them as they continue their football journey? But what was it like being a coach?
It was fun. It was fun. I mean, it was only for like a middle school team, but I mean, it's my first year coaching. I'm like, I was only 20 years old, so I'm like, it's not a bad start. But so the story that happened with that, so throughout high school, my coaches, some of my coaches would always kind of say like, you would be a really good coach and stuff like that. But I didn't really want to hear it. I wasn't really hearing that. I'm like, I'm not worried about coaching right now, you know. But I finally like thought about it, and I was like, I was like, okay, I'll consider it a little bit, years down the line. Like I've done football camps and all that kind of stuff, and I really enjoyed that. So I was like, you know what? I'll give this coaching thing a try. So one of my old coaches had contacted me, and he was like, hey, can you come by the office or whatever, and chat for a little while. And I'm like, that's kind of random, but I was like, all right, let me see, what he's talking about.
Hmm.
So we get there and we talking about football, and he's like, hey, the middle school team kind of needs some help, and I was wondering if you wanted to help out and stuff like that. And I was like, I'll think about it. Even though like I love football, I was like, I'll think about it. So waited a little bit, and I'm weighing the pros and cons of it, and I'm just like, all right, cool. I'll coach. Getting paid to coach, doing something I love is cool. I mean, it's not really about the money because like I don't really care too much about that. I mean, yes, I gotta buy stuff, but I mean, it's really whatever. So I was just like, all right, cool. I'm down. I'm down to do it. So I get there, so we get everything set up, and the cool thing is, with some of the like middle school players who are about to be freshmen in high school now, when I was a senior, they were younger as well, so we remembered each other, of course. And so with them watching high school and then me being around the teams and stuff like that, so I was coaching throughout the year, and I had fun. It was a lot of fun. So we had went undefeated in the season, so that was my number one goal. I was like, all right, if I'm going to coach this year, I want a championship and nothing less. I don't care about anything else. So throughout the season, I didn't care how many games we won or how many points we won the game by. We could beat a team 50-8. I think we actually did that.
Wow.
And I wouldn't care. I'm like, yeah, that's fine, but I want a championship. I'll be happy and I'll be able to celebrate and all that. Once I get my championship, I'll be satisfied. Once we get a championship, I'll be satisfied. So throughout the season, we're playing good, and some of the games were tough, but we ended up winning and stuff like that. So just throughout the whole season, just to be able to learn about coaching and stuff like that. Like I said, I've always been a student of the game, so I feel like I can teach other people the game. So that was fun. So throughout the season, it was cool. We were undefeated, but I'm like, I don't care about being undefeated right now. I just want to win a championship. So just take it one game at a time, and that's that. Get to the playoffs. Have two tough playoff games, but we end up winning them, and then championship game rolls around. So like during the game, I'm sitting there like coaching. Like if the offense is going, and I coach defense and all that, and I already talked to my group and all that, and the defensive backs group, I'll be like looking at the trophy. The trophy would be like way over there, and I'll be like staring at it. And I'll just be like, gotta have that. Gotta have that. So then I'll pay attention to the game, and then look at the trophy, and I'll be like, I gotta have that. So we end up winning the game, got the trophy, and I'm like, finally, first year coaching, undefeated, and I have a championship. We won a championship already. So that's something to add to the, I guess, resume, if that makes sense. So it was pretty fun, though. I really enjoyed it.
Congrats on that, by the way. That's awesome.
Thank you.
So are you, with this pandemic going on, are you currently writing more stories about your journey as we speak, or?
Yes, actually. 1 second. So since the pandemic has started, I've written maybe like 5 stories since then. Since the pandemic, so I wrote one called "You're Not Alone." So it's about just mental health and just telling people and just trying to help them realize that they're not alone with that, and other people have felt that way as well, myself included. I wrote one titled "Dear ESPN," which is just about my love for ESPN and like hopefully being able to work with them one day on a story or just like anything. really. Or it could be like any sports network, but I was just talking about ESPN just because I was like, okay, ESPN's cool. They're like the main one. So yeah, and then I was just talking about people who used to work for ESPN. I think he used to work for ESPN. His name is Emmanuel Acho.
Yes.
Yeah.
He does stuff with the Get Up show on
Hmm.
in the morning, and yeah, he does a great job. Yeah.
So yeah, I think he works with Fox Sports now,
Mhm.
but nonetheless, I think he used to work for ESPN. So I was just trying to spread my story out or just send my stories, and I was like, I came across him, and I was like, all right, I'll send it to him. Cool. So I sent it to him, and then he actually responded to it on Twitter, and I was like, oh snap! I was like, okay, cool. I was looking, and I was like, whoa, I didn't see that. I didn't see that coming. So I was like, all right, cool. So then I had tweeted out. He was like, hey, basically saying like it was a good story. He respects my transparency and stuff like that. And so I had tweeted at him, and I was like, I was really surprised that he had read the story, and I was like, I appreciate that. And he had responded and said, "You're up next, bro. It's imperative I support. Just make sure you do the same thing for the next one."
Hmm.
So I was like, okay, that's really cool for sure. So I wrote that. I wrote a story called "Mental Health: The Human Side of DeMar DeRozan." So that's one of my favorite stories I've written. It might be my favorite and just best or most well-written story, if that makes sense. So that I wrote something called "Self-Isolation." Everybody loves Jalen, talking about Jalen Hurts. So
Hmm.
he's one of my favorite college football players and now in the NFL. So really big fan of his. And then I wrote a story called "Mental Health: How I'm Using My Platform to Help Others." So I was talking about my love of the game of football, and then I wrote a story about just really everything going on with social justice stuff, and just like my opinion on it, and just everything that's been going on with that. So just trying to spread some love, just with all that going on. And I was talking about sports injuries too, because
Okay.
I had knee surgery recently.
Hmm.
So I tore my meniscus in actually, I don't know when I tore it, if I'm being completely honest. It either happened in between November 2019 and March of 2020, or like April-ish. So I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if it was like during a workout or something like that, but I noticed my knee was hurting. And I was like, what's going on? And it was like some stuff on my knee. And I'm like, what is this? So I finally got an MRI like way later on. And then they told me that it was like, hey, it's torn, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm like, oh, dang. So I'm like, okay. So got the surgery and all that, and I'm recovering from that now. So been doing rehab. So I wrote a story about that, just how I'm dealing with that, and people who have motivated me, dealing with this whole recovery stuff. And some of those people are Kevin Durant being the main person. So it's like him, Odell Beckham Jr., Victor Cruz, and other people. So Kevin Durant mainly. So I was looking at his injury and all that, and I'm just like, dang, when he got hurt in the finals. So and he actually got hurt on my birthday. He got hurt on my birthday, so I'm like, dang, that's not fun. So yeah, so I've been looking at his rehab and his progress and all that, and that's been really motivating for me, my rehab and my progress and all that kind of stuff. So, and he's my favorite player too. So
Speaking of KD, he's gonna come out with vengeance in Brooklyn next year.
oh yeah,
That team is gonna be a force to be reckoned with next year.
oh yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait to watch. So just talking about sports injuries and my motivation with that, and then just talking about the mental side of sports injuries. So I've written about that, and like the whole recovery process has been difficult. Like it's been difficult, challenging, frustrating. A side note, I'm actually documenting it for my YouTube channel. So I've been doing that, but it's been difficult. It's been really lonely at times, like me not really being able to do much, but go to physical therapy and be at home, which is kind of it. So it's been hard, but I mean, I've been working through it. So I mean,
That's
it's all right.
that's awesome. That's really inspiring. And but like people say, during this tough situation, actually during all of this tough times, the social injustice too is another important topic, and we just have to keep it going and making sure the you guys it's just we just have to keep motivating other people, especially during this social injustice and obviously this COVID situation. And it's just amazing to see you and Kobe and just putting the stories out there so people see it. That's the main
Mhm,
thing. That's the main important thing right there. And
for
but
sure.
But now I do this rapid fire segment with all my guests that come on the show. You ready for this?
All right, let's get it.
Yeah. So I've seen pictures of you on Instagram with some couple of current NFL players from the Texans and from the Falcons. Kenyo Neal, one of the best.
Keanu Neal,
Yeah, one of the best linebackers in the game right now. Young linebackers.
safety.
Sorry, safety. Yeah. So what was it like? When did you start connecting with the guy from the Texans and then obviously the Falcons?
So the dude from the Texans, Kean Crossan, I met him when he was playing with the Patriots. So I actually saw him a day before the Super Bowl. So because they were playing in Atlanta. So I went shopping and I was just like, walking around, whatever. And there was this like event at this store, and there was like, oh, this NFL player is supposed to be there, and I'm like, okay. So I was doing a YouTube vlog, and I was like, okay, let me check this out. So it was him. So I was like, all right, I met him. He was real cool and stuff like that. And surprisingly, some of my friends had known him already. So I was just talking to him, and I was just like, hey, what's up? Et cetera, et cetera. And he was in my YouTube video, so I thought that was pretty cool. So then just talking to him about the Super Bowl. If I'm being honest, I wanted the Rams to win because I'm not a Patriots fan, because I'm a Peyton Manning fan and Tom Brady played with the Patriots. So it's like, it's not happening. But I do respect him, though. Of course, you got to respect greatness and then winning so many Super Bowls. So met him like that. So that was really cool. So Keanu, how I met him, I met him in 2014. So I took a little family trip. Not really a whole family trip, but me and my mom went to the spring game, Florida spring game. So I went to Florida spring game in 2014. So I was just like, okay, so I'm at the game. So I was there to see like Vernon Hargraves because I had talked to him earlier in the week, and LaTroy Pittman. So he's a good friend of mine. Just showing me showing me the field and all that other kind of stuff. So just showing me all that. So I was there, and after the game, we were on the field, and I was just walking around, and I saw Keanu. So I talked to Keanu, and I took a picture with him and all that. So that was cool. I met him, Dante Fowler Jr., and some other people. So that happened. So years later, years down the line, I was going to this like fashion event kind of thing at this store. And so at that store, it's called Hugo Boss, right? So Keanu, I don't know if he's like signed with them or like sponsored with them, but he's done like work with them, I guess. So he was there, and it was like an event, so he was gonna be there, and I was like, cool. So I went, and I was talking to him, and I was like, hey, I don't know if you remember, but I met you like in 2014, a long time ago, and then I showed him a picture. He was like, oh snap. So we were talking about all that, and we were talking about just the NFL and his rehab because he had just gotten hurt, earlier in the season. So we were talking about that. We're talking about the combine and the whole process and all that kind of stuff. But I hung out there for a little while. He's really cool. He's really nice for sure. He's mean on the field, definitely, yeah. But he's really cool though. He's a real cool dude.
That's awesome. Kawhi Leonard's laugh or Kevin Hart's laugh?
Kawhi. Easy.
Favorite food?
Favorite food? So like food in general or meal?
Food in general.
Food in general, I would say chicken or chicken wings, pretty much.
So what are your thoughts on this NBA restart so far?
I think the NBA is doing a great job. NBA and WNBA. I think they're doing amazing. The whole bubble idea, great. Now I had my doubts about it at first, but I think they're doing a great job for sure. So I'm really glad to see, games starting back up. And then I've been watching WNBA a little more. So I watched the New York Liberty play against, I forgot the team they were playing against. I forgot the name, but I know Breonna Stewart plays for that team.
Seattle.
Yeah. So I was watching that game because I wanted to watch Sabrina Ionescu play. So I was just like, okay, I wanted to watch them and just see. I was like, you know what, NBA started back up, WNBA started back up. So I'm like, of course I'll check both of them out, So I was watching the WNBA game and I was like, okay, it was pretty cool. So I enjoyed that, and the NBA is starting back up. So I think both leagues have been doing a really good job. I think the NBA is doing a good job of supporting the WNBA as well, and just just helping them out in some ways, and just with everything with the NBA, everybody coming together and just talking about social justice stuff while playing basketball, and they really made a point to talk about that. So That was cool. I remember. I think his name is Derek White for the Spurs. So he was playing and he actually chipped a tooth, and they were asking him about it, and they were basically saying like, I'm sure that hurt and all that kind of stuff, that he's dealing with that, and he was like, well, it's not as bad as the stuff going on in the world right now. And I was just like, wow, just like, okay, all right then. So yeah, I think both leagues have been doing a great job. So I'm happy to see basketball back, especially with me rehabbing and stuff like that. I can't really do much besides rehab and just chill and watch NBA and WNBA. So it's cool.
Yeah. So speaking of your rehab, how's it going?
Rehab is going good. So I had surgery on July 9th. So side note, the thing about me in like sports medicine, I love sports medicine. So I'm not majoring in sports medicine right now, actually majoring in sports management, but I do want to at least minor in sports medicine at some point. But so I just love the whole process with that. And like, I've had my fair share of injuries before and dealing with physical therapy and stuff like that. So that kind of sparked my interest for it. So with my surgery and just sports medicine in general, I try to, I guess, be as acclimated and do as much research as I can on whatever's going on with like injuries and stuff like that. So once I had my surgery, prior to that, I would actually watch the surgery on like YouTube and stuff like that, just so I can know like, what's going on and what they're gonna do and all this stuff. So I was watching like the knee surgery and the whole process of it, and I'm like, okay, this is actually kind of cool. So really just talking to doctors and physical therapists and stuff like that, I try to get as much information on what we're working on at hand, albeit a knee injury or a quad or something like that, just so we could all be on the same page. So when they're explaining everything to me, I actually understand what they're talking about. And then when I'm talking to them about stuff and having questions, they know what I'm talking about. So, yeah, but I had surgery on July the 9th, and I didn't start rehab until like a week later. They wanted me in rehab the very next day, but I was like, I can't. Like, I don't have the energy for that at all. But so rehab has been going good. Doing a lot of exercises. A good amount of the rehab is supposed to be on my own. So I'll go to physical therapy and stuff like that, do that a few times a week, but a lot of the work is on my own. So I've been doing that. And I've been making a lot of progress. It's still difficult. It's still difficult to do like certain things. Like it's hard to get around, being on crutches and stuff like that. And I can't really put that much weight on it right now. So, that's been difficult. But I've made a lot of progress. So usually what I tell my physical therapist, I'm like, I want to be in here sweating. I want to be tired. I want to be, having to drink some water or some Gatorade or something like that. Like I want to be worked out. But with some of the stuff, I can't really be so worked out right now because I can't really do much because I'm, still coming off the surgery and trying to take it slow. So with this injury, it's a whole 3-month process, pretty much, with rehab, stuff like that. So I usually tell them like, or I usually tell people like, I want my physical therapist to treat me the same way KD's physical therapist treated them or him, and just other players and stuff like that. So yeah, but it's going good though. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, no problem. So obviously with the WNBA back, and also all these players are taking a stand or making a statement with the social injustice, and this whole thing started with Maya Moore. She's what a great person she is, and I had the opportunity to interview Renee Montgomery back in May on my show, and she's another one who's taking a stand for WNBA. So what are your thoughts on that with all these WNBA players being aspiring and doing what's important for what's going on right now?
I think it's really cool to see that with Maya Moore. She basically gave up a whole season,
Yeah.
right? Wasn't it a whole season just to dedicate to social justice stuff like that? So it's very commendable, of course. And it's really cool to see NBA players, standing together and just really talking about all this, especially LeBron. We know LeBron. He's going to be at the forefront. He always is. So I think that's really cool. And it's really cool to see other players, talking about that stuff as well.
Yeah. Trae Young or John Morant?
Trae Young or John Morant? I would say Trae Young right now, just because I feel like he's a better shooter than John Morant. But John Morant is a freak athlete. But I like both. But I'll go with Trae Young right now.
Yeah. Do you see John Morant's dunk yesterday? That was crazy.
Yeah. He's so athletic. Like people were always kind of like saying like, yo, he needs to chill out. Like it's okay to hang on the rim at least a little bit, But I mean, I understand though. So
Yeah.
freak athlete.
And obviously James Harden didn't miss a beat. He had 49
No.
yesterday, and and everybody's not talking about. I mean, obviously he gets to get attention, but I feel like he needs to get more attention in the league. And this guy is like he's one of a heck of a player, obviously. And I wonder if I don't know if they will win the championship this year, but at some point he will get his ring, I think.
Yeah, he has to. He's got to. He's been averaging like 36.1 points a game or something like that, and he scored like 40 something when they played against Dallas in the actual games, regular season games. So it's crazy. He's been going off.
Yeah. So who do you have actually? Let me ask you this: who do you have in the finals this year?
I don't know.
Oh, you don't.
I have no clue. It's either with me. It's either Lakers and Clippers for the West, but Houston's up there too. So Houston, and then at the same time, it's like I don't know. But then in the East, I think Milwaukee's gonna take it. I think Milwaukee's gonna take it, but other teams are catching up to them too, though. So I don't know. It's kind of a slippery slope, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure yet.
Yeah,
I'm just happy that basketball's back.
Oh,
really.
Yeah. Don't discount the Toronto Raptors though. They're greedy.
Right. Toronto Raptors are doing great. I think they have a great head coach. I think Nick Nurse is doing a great job, especially with players like being gone, especially without Kawhi, and then just all that stuff, and they're still doing great. They still won like 43 plus games or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they're doing good.
Yeah, so obviously other sports are trying to come back too. Hockey's back today, actually. They're NHL is back, but baseball, man, that might be in jeopardy again with all these COVID outbreaks. And
yeah, I know.
I mean, what is your take on how they're doing? Do you think they should have done a bubble also?
I'm not really sure. I don't know how it would work if they did a bubble. I think wouldn't they just play at one stadium and just kind of keep everybody there? But I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Baseball is kind of different. With NBA, they just kept everybody right here. Don't go anywhere. If you go somewhere, come back, get tested, all that stuff, quarantine. But I'm not sure. So baseball, I mean, it was cool to see baseball being back, but at the same time, it's like, all the COVID cases they've been having. So, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, so obviously you said earlier that you're interested in coming back to play football and coaching, but if you're, I mean, today, which one are you leaning towards now though, coaching or playing football?
Really neither. I mean, I think both would be cool, but at the same time, like I don't know. So I'm not really looking that far ahead right now. Okay. So I mainly just been wanting to just focus on like rehab and school right now, and maybe down the line I could probably consider that. But coaching definitely later on if I feel like doing that. But I'm not sure about playing right now. Really, what I'm doing mainly with sports is just writing about sports and really just trying to help people and inspire people about mental health in sports. So that's been like a big deal for me.
Thoughts on the Knicks getting Tom Thibodeau?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not really surprised at the same time, but hopefully it'll help the Knicks get better. So, I'm not sure, but I don't really pay attention to the Knicks like that. But yeah.
And the last thing here, would you like to say anything to all the nurses, doctors, and essential workers?
What I want to say to doctors, nurses, and everybody is thank you, of course, for doing such a great job and helping everyone with all the stuff going on with the pandemic and all that. It's much appreciated. And they might not get the credit that they deserve. Of course not, because they deserve way more credit than they've been getting. But I think they've been doing a great job, and I salute them for sure.
Yeah, well said. And I just want to say thank you, Brian, for coming on this podcast today. This has been an honor. You guys are such an inspiration. Keep doing good, and your articles are amazing. Keep putting them out there, and hopefully this interview will help you also. And I'm going to be posting this on all social media formats, and I'm going to send you the link also so you can post it on your platforms too.
Thank you.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. But I just want to say thank you for coming on, and I'll be tagging some of these ESPN people and even Whisper Fisher and other people so they can see it too. So.
For sure. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And you guys stay safe.
Yes, sir. You too.
Thank you.